Right, okay, so we're going to create a little tile map and we're going to define it manually. So there's a couple of steps that are important. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate the map data. Okay, now in Solution Explorer, it's probably a good idea to keep the map data away from your code. So you can create a folder. Okay, so if you just right click on code, I'll create a new folder for this. So you just say add new folder and it'll create a folder, give it a name, maps, something sensible. Okay, if I then right click on that and say add new item, this is the best way to make sure the file goes in the right place. We just want a text file. So if we scroll down, we'll find text file somewhere. Ooh, go up a bit. There it is. And give it a sensible name. It'll put .txt at the end anyway. So I'm just going to call it test map. Okay, so you can verify that it's in there. Now the other thing you need to do, we need to get the compiler to copy this to the same directory where the executable file is going to be created. So if we right click on that file and say properties, and then you'll see here it says copy to output directory. Now you can say always, but you only need to get it to do it if it's changed, and it'll keep track of that for you. Alright, but you must do that, otherwise you'll get file not found errors. Okay, so this is the basic structure. It's empty. We have 3 things to put in this map definition. A key to say what tiles we've got. Yes, Lewis? Yeah. It always defaults. I don't know why. Is that bigger now? Yeah. We need a key to say what tiles exist. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a load of letters, and you can see an example of this if you go into that one. Okay. So the order that you put these will be the order that you define the files, the tiles. Okay. So I'm going to use a dot to represent a blank area of the map. Don't use space because you can't see them. All right. So that's a tip. You can use any characters you want. I'm going to use X for tile 2. And I'm just going to do 2 tile types to start, but you can put as many as you want. I'll do 3. Another symbol, an @ but the characters are up to you. So on the first line, you're just going to put that. Okay, the number of tiles you want. The second line has to have, as you can see again from looking at this one, 2 numbers separated by a comma. Don't use any other character because the engine's going to look for that comma. And this is the tile size. So I'm going to create, because I want this map to be big and I don't want to have to type a load of stuff, I'm going to make my tiles quite big. So I'm going to say 50 by 50. Okay. Right, and then on the next line, that's where I start my map definition. So it's important, it's all case sensitive, so a little x is not the same as a big X. Okay, so I'm going to make a wall. He says putting little x's in. A wall, that's how wide I want my map to be. Okay, so it's going to be quite large because each one of those x's represents 50 pixels. Okay, right, and then I'm going to do another, and I'm going to put loads of space. So what I'm going to have is my blank tile. It's important that you make these the same width. The engine will look to find out what the longest line is. Okay. Now, if I want to make a massive load of these, the easiest way is to copy paste. When you've got a few, copy a few more. And then I'm just going to mark it at the end. Daniel, I'm recording a video, Daniel. Thanks for that. Right, so that's my basic structure of my map. So I can work out if I cared. Okay, down at the bottom right, you can see that says column. Well, that's column 53. So this is 53 blocks wide, which is a very odd number, but it doesn't matter. Alright. And it is 16, oh god, can I do the maths? 13, 14 blocks high. I think I'm right in saying that, eventually. Right, so once I've got my outside layout, I can then start putting the other ones in. So I'm going to put some ats in. Tip, you can do this, but that shifts it along. So let's use insert, the insert key. For the first time ever, someone's found a use for the insert key. Press insert, and that lets you go into overtype mode. So I can just do my @ symbols and see there is a use for that. It isn't just there to annoy people when they accidentally press it. Okay, so I'm just going to put in, I'll keep it on actually. Okay, I'm going to leave my map like that. Take insert back off. So that's my map defined. What I now need to do is create my tile map that's going to use this. Alright. Oh, I'm missing out a thing there. So that's saved. So I'm going to do project. Make sure you're in the code section. Project add class or Shift-Alt-C. You'll get used to the key. They make a difference, the keys. Using shortcuts and things. Right, so I'm going to create this as level map. As my class. Right, again, because I'm going to be using features of the library, I need to add the library entries. Okay, so I'm going to take all the Microsoft XNA stuff from another one. Just go to the top of another file, grab the Engine 7 and the XNA libraries and just bung them in at the top. Okay. Right, this is going to inherit from tilemap, so we're going to say that. Let's make it public. Right, and what I'm gonna do with this, I'm gonna make this the constructor for this, but I'm gonna give it the file name, which means I can pass it different file names and it'll generate the map for that, whatever that map is. Okay, so we're going to create the constructor for that. So it has to have the same name as the class. And we're just going to give it, I'm going to pass it 2 bits of data. A name that I want to call the map. So map name and the file name. I've done something stupid somewhere. Has it done that? Let me just make that a little bit smaller. Hide down. Right, get into the habit of putting XML comments in so that you can put your explanation and your parameter explanations. Okay, so I've just said that generates level map, explain what the parameters are. That's really important because what we'll get, Sandcastle program can take this data and generate all your technical documentation without you having to do anything, which you don't want to have to do manually. Because the exam board will expect you to produce a list of all the subroutines and all the fields. Yes. Just to do the XML comments, I'll just do it on the class one because you need to do it on that as well. Just do 3 slashes and it'll automatically do it. Just above an item. Okay. Yeah. Where's this? Oh, just do Shift-Alt-C to generate a new class for it. Okay. You what? Yeah, select class, yeah. Give it a sensible name. I've called it level map, but you can call it whatever you want, Lewis. Alright. Right, because we're doing this from a file, we don't have to mess about with saying how big the map is, because the file defines how big the map is. So I'm going to we're not going to call base like we did when we did the basic tile map. So we're going to set the name, oops, of the tile map manually. And then we just need to tell it to generate a tile map from our file. Now there's different methods for doing this. I've shown you the simplest way, which is this one. Set map from string file, which is what I've got you to create. There are different ways you can organize the data. Okay, and all we need to do is pass it the file name that we've been given. If we stop there, it'll break. We've actually got to define the tiles. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to define the tiles, the basic tiles, just using rectangular blocks from the game engine. But you can put your own textures in here and define your own textures. Okay, but I'll show you the basic structure. And if you want to create special tiles, and I know some of you are going to want to do that, then I can show you how to do that, and they can just be, because they're going to inherit from a tile, the game engine's quite happy working with them. You will have your extra functionality in them. Okay, and we'll have to talk about that. Right, so all we're going to do now is we're going to define tiles for those 3 tiles that I've defined. Okay, with the dot, the X and the @ symbol in that order. So I'm going to just say my tile list, and you'll see that come up. Use the picker all the time. Okay, and this is basically just an array. It's going to be an array of tile. And we define an empty one of these like this. And we try and lay it out like this because then that makes it easy to put each tile definition on a separate line. So we're saying we've got an array that we're creating of tiles. We only want to put 3, but you can add to this. Okay, we're just creating an array of tiles and we're saying these are going to be the tiles. So we just say new tile and we define each tile. And you can see you can make an empty one, which means you can mess about with it later. Or we can do this. Now I'm going to use the third method of creating a tile, the third constructor, where I specify what texture contains the graphic. Now I'm just going to use the Engine Manager's graphic. And there's a handy one that you can use as a placeholder called rectangle 50 by 50. Okay, so that's a nice rectangle. If you want a smaller tile, still use this and I'll show you how you define a portion of it. So I'm going to use that. Then I'm going to specify what part of it. So if you're doing a texture map, that you've got a big texture and you want a rectangle from it, this is how you do it. So you're just going to say rectangle. Right, so I want the top left hand corner of it, and I want in this case 50 pixels by 50 pixels. But if you want 32 by 32 of that for testing purposes, just pick 32 by 32. It depends. Whatever you've set in your map to say what the texture size was, you need to make sure you've got a graphic that big, otherwise it'll go and break. The final parameter for this was a colour. So this is white, this rectangle, so I'm going to colour it in different colours. So the background colour I am going to make, what should we have? Colour dot blanched almond, whatever colour that is. Okay, let me just make that a little bit smaller. And because this is a list, it's an array, I put a comma to say there's a new one coming. So once you've got that definition, I can just copy that line for the other 2 tiles. And the only thing I'm going to change on this one is the colour. So my wall, I am going to make, I'm just going to make that black. And my third tile was the @ symbol. So I'm going to make those lime. That's arcade green line. So that just defines the tiles. So that can be as complicated as you need it to be. There isn't much more to do. So we've got set the name, load the map data, define what the tiles are. Okay. We need to say tile map manager. Oh, GM dot. And say, right, we've got a tile map that we want you to add. Okay, so it's going to be this tile map that we just defined. If you don't do that line, you won't see your tile map, because it's the manager that forces it to be drawn and forces it to move around as well. Right, the last bit we need to do. By default, the size of the world is the size of the screen. Now this map is going to be massive. We can test it to see if it just displays on screen properly by going back. So I'll just build that F6 just to make sure it builds properly. And it says build succeeds. So I'm going to go back to my general logic because I want to try and use this. So I'm going to get rid of that dog on a field. So just in my show title code, and I'm just going to say new level map. And it should come up in the picker if it's working properly. And it wants a name for it, so test. And it wants to know the file name. Now when you specify the file name for this, you should only really need to say the folder. So it's a little bit like when you generate your, load your graphics in. Okay, it should be similar to that. So I need Solution Explorer open. Let me just pin it. So I've got a folder called maps. So I say maps. And then we need to put slash. But that's an escape character, which lets you put like T for tab. So we want to actually say we actually meant to put a slash. So we have to put slash slash. Alright, that actually means slash. Weirdly. Why someone picked slash as the escape character, I don't know. They did. And then we need to put the full name. Now mine's called testmap.txt. Oh, he's jumping about a bit. So testmap, and you have to put the txt on this because this is a regular file. It's not processed in any way. So I'm saying run the level map class, create an instance of it, and this is now an object. So we create an object from that class with that file data. Okay, so I'm going to just build it to make sure it builds again, and then I'm going to press F5 to run it. So hopefully I'll see my massive fat tiles on screen. There you go. There's the green ones that was the @ symbol. It's not coming up. Did you put public? I'll come and have a look, Sean, in a minute. Right. So I've got my maps working. Okay, I'll come and fix anyone who's having errors. I'm recording the vid to show you how to do it. You might just miss a step. Okay, again, it's jerky as oak because of the recording software. Alright, right. I go off screen. I don't really want that to happen. I want the thing to scroll as I move around. Now, it can't do that until I set the world size. So let me just quit that and go back to my level map. So at the end, what I can do is I can say gm.engine manager .world size and say, right, okay, the area of the tile map. Okay, so that will look up the tile map and say, right, how big is it? Right, I'm going to make the world that size. Okay, and you can verify that this is correct by in the debug data, you can get the engine to display this data. Res and world. If you set that debug information on, when we run that, you'll see the data at the top of the screen. It says the resolution is 1280 by 720, but the world is 2650 pixels by 700. Okay, now if I wanted the map to scroll up and down, obviously it needs to be bigger than the screen. And I can quickly fix that by going into my map and just saying, you know what, I'm just going to copy and paste a few more. I'm going to copy that line, paste it a few more times. We're getting there. Once you've got the code set up, it then becomes a matter of just changing the data, which is how we want to work. We don't want to be manually creating maps. It'll take ages. You have to code too much and you're going to make mistakes. Right, so the last bit we want to do, I was going to do it in a separate video, but I can't be bothered. I'm just going to put the code in now. So in my player controller, when I move, I want to update the view on the screen. So I'm going to find my player user sprite, I think we called it. So I'm going to add another thing to the update. So I'm going to say on update for this. I'm just going to call it move map. It doesn't exist, so I'm going to right click, say generate method stub. There is a shortcut for that as well. Right, so I'm now going to manipulate the viewport. So I'm going to say to the engine, view.x equals the position of my sprite minus the center of the screen. And that'll keep me in the center of the screen, unless we're at the edge of the map. Okay, so I'm going to say x minus, and then I can say for the center of the screen, screen size dot center x. And I can do the same for the y value. So I just copy pasted that. Okay, so I'm just going to put my XML comment in. I'm going to say move viewport to center player. Okay, the easiest bit of code you'll do in your life. Now, I'm making sure that I put it on this line after I've done the control code, because I want to do this once I've updated the player's position. If I do it the other way around, I'll be a frame behind, which will be weird. Okay, so now, automatically, we're doing no other stuff. The tilemap manager should scroll the map. I'm not colliding with anything. We weren't interested in that. Oh, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Mr. Player. Okay, and it'll scroll the map down. But that's being done for you by the tilemap manager. It knows where the player is. Okay, so that is something you can really start working on. So just to recap, create your map. It has to have this structure. Okay, so basically a list of tiles that can be extracted from this data. The size of each tile on it needs to be the same. Then in your level data, you're just going to create an inherited tile map. Set up the file name. You can hand code this, hard code the file name if you want to. I'm not bothered about that. This just makes it more flexible for you, so you don't have to create loads of level map classes. That would be daft. Define the tiles. If you don't define the tiles, you'll get this error. So if you forget to define the tiles, it'll attempt to draw it, and you'll get null reference. Now it's died in a completely different part of the game. Okay? So whenever you get a null, you're looking automatically for things that haven't been defined properly. Which is just what that was. That bit's crucial for setting the world size. And that allows the viewport to move within that world. You can make the viewport go outside the world, but by default it's clamped. So you automatically get this nice feature where as you get to the edge, the viewport stops scrolling. Once we've got collision detection added in, we won't be able to go past that line if we want that to be the case. Okay. Right, I'll leave that at that. Anyone who's got any problems, I'll come around and have a fix up. But that's essentially all you got to do. It's probably a good idea to put the debug stuff up so that you can see that it's done something. Okay, right, I'll stop that and I'll upload that to YouTube.